An astronaut stands on a middle platform enclosed in a stiff white spacesuit. Several technicians steady the chest section while checking every connection. The helmet is locked into place, the radio is tested, and the pressure inside the suit begins to rise. Below the platform, divers are already waiting in the water. A crane lifts the platform from the floor, carries it over the edge of the pool, and slowly lowers it into the water. The water rises past the astronaut's boots and chest until it finally covers the helmet. From that point on, the astronaut may remain inside the suit for nearly 6 hours. Cameras follow every movement of the astronaut's hands and body throughout the session. Inside the control room, instructors record which parts of the job are still taking too much time or using too much energy. NASA wants to find as many mistakes as possible at the bottom of this pool before the same procedure is performed outside the International Space Station, hundreds of miles above Earth. This place is called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, or NBL. The facility is located near Johnson Space Center in Houston. Its pool is 202 feet long and 102 feet wide, with a floor 40 feet below the surface. About 6.2 million gallons of chlorinated fresh water fill the hangar-sized room. The water temperature is kept between 84 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Full-size mock-ups of several exterior sections of the International Space Station stand at the bottom of the pool. The handrails and work areas are arranged to resemble the places astronauts will face in orbit. The layout can be changed whenever NASA needs to train for a different job. Inside the suit, an astronaut's shoulders can only rotate as far as the suit allows. The pressurized gloves constantly push back against the fingers. When one hand pushes against a tool, the entire body moves because there's no floor holding the feet in place. NASA astronaut candidates spend nearly 2 years learning basic skills before they are qualified to receive a flight assignment. They train at Johnson Space Center and fly T-38 jets. Other exercises take them into the water and wilderness where they learn how to survive until a rescue team arrives. Spacewalk training brings them to the NBL. Here, procedures they previously learned on land are performed with their bodies locked inside pressurized suits. Before beginning that training, astronauts have to complete a special scuba qualification for the facility. A diving certificate earned outside NASA does not automatically replace it. The qualification begins out of the water. After instructors evaluate their swimming ability, the candidates enter the pool and show they can work with the NBL's diving equipment. That experience helps astronauts understand how divers move around the suit. When visibility is limited or something about the equipment feels wrong, astronauts have to explain what is happening without losing their composure. Before a session like this, the astronauts study the route to the worksite and practice with the tools they will use. During training for a repair on 𝗖𝗫𝗄, Nick Hague and Don Pettit examined a model of the instrument in the repair patches during a one-gravity briefing. 𝗖𝗫𝗄 is an X-ray telescope mounted outside the International Space Station. In May 2023, several thin thermal shields on the instrument developed holes and tears. Those layers filter visible, infrared, and ultraviolet light so X-rays can reach the detectors without interference from sunlight. The damage allowed light to enter whenever the ISS passed through the daylight side of its orbit. That light began interfering with the instrument's measurements. Teams on the ground designed small, wedge-shaped patches that could be inserted into 𝗖𝗫𝗄's sunshades. An astronaut would have to carry each patch to the instrument, guide it through a narrow opening, and lock it into place. Hague and Pettit practiced using the T-handle that would hold each patch. The storage container was placed where it would be positioned during the real spacewalk. Everything has to remain tethered during a spacewalk. A container placed too close to another tether can block the astronaut's hands. If it is too far away, the astronaut wastes energy just trying to reach it. A training day begins with a medical examination. The astronaut then puts on a cooling garment covered with a network of small tubes. Water moves through those tubes during the session, carrying heat away from the body. Technicians help guide the astronaut's legs into the lower half of the suit. The upper body is fitted into the rigid, hard upper torso. The gloves are locked into place after the fingers are checked. The helmet is installed last. The complete ISS Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or EMU, used in orbit weighs around 319 pounds on Earth. That includes the life support backpack and the safer rescue device. The NBL training suit receives support from the surface through an umbilical line. The line supplies air and cooling water. Radio communication and video from the helmet camera also pass through the same connection. Divers constantly reposition the umbilical so it does not wrap around a handrail or interfere with the astronaut's work. Extra hose is slowly pulled away so the astronaut does not feel it tugging from behind. Operators on the surface adjust the cooling water flow when the astronaut asks for a change. Physical work inside the suit produces heat very quickly. The astronaut can request a temperature adjustment over the radio if they start feeling too hot or too cold. The pressure inside the suit is raised to around 4.3 psi before the crane begins moving. The suit immediately holds its shape. Whenever the astronaut bends a finger, the muscles have to fight against pressure, trying to straighten it again. Once the platform enters the water, divers begin balancing the suit. They attach weights and buoyant material at several points, then briefly let go to see which way the astronaut's body moves. If the legs continue sinking, the weight arrangement is not right. If one shoulder keeps rotating to the side, that also has to be corrected. The team makes small adjustments until the suit can remain still in the water. The team records each astronaut's weigh-out results so the next session does not have to start from zero. Small changes are still necessary because the tools being carried and changes in the astronaut's body can affect the balance. This condition is known as neutral buoyancy. The water supports the combined weight of the astronaut and the suit, allowing the body to remain suspended in the middle of the pool without rising to the surface or sinking to the bottom. Gravity is still pulling on the body inside the suit. When the astronaut lies on one side, the shoulder presses against the inside of the suit. The water also resists movement and slows down every push. Instructors account for those effects when evaluating the astronaut's technique. The NBL gives astronauts several hours to repeat tasks on full-size mock-ups while moving in every direction. Once the suit feels properly balanced, the astronaut begins moving toward the work site. The astronaut pulls their body from one handrail to the next. Pushing too hard can spin the entire body and turn the helmet camera away from the equipment. A primary safety tether keeps the astronaut connected to the structure. After reaching the work site, the astronaut can attach a shorter tether to keep the body from drifting. Every tool in the astronaut's hands also has its own tether. During the 𝗖𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗃 training, the importance of those tethers became clear when 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃 dropped the T-handle. A diver then simulated the tug of the tether that would keep the tool close to 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃's body in orbit. Small moments like this show why tools are never allowed to float freely. One loose object could drift away from the ISS and become impossible to recover. The astronaut's feet are then secured inside a foot restraint. The restraint holds the body steady so both hands can work. Just a few inches can make the difference between reaching a tool comfortably and being forced to work in an exhausting position. Lightweight tools are used while the astronaut moves through the pool. After reaching the work site, support divers replace them with heavier versions that more closely match the shape and operation of the real tools. Those heavier tools are removed again before the astronaut moves to another area. Two safety divers stay close to the astronaut's body at all times. Farther away, support divers carry equipment toward the work site. A camera diver looks for angles that the control room team can use. When two astronauts are in the pool, at least 8 divers work around them. The divers can rotate during the session. The astronauts remain inside their suits. In the control room, instructors watch video from the helmet cameras and the divers' cameras. Radio communication follows the same style used between astronauts and flight controllers during a real spacewalk. The time required to finish each task is also recorded. One connector that keeps getting stuck may cause a later task to be removed from the schedule. Instructions can change as time begins running out. The astronaut has to listen to those changes while still watching the tethers and body position. Mission control may also change priorities during a real EVA. Spacewalks outside the ISS often last around 6.5 hours. Part of that time is spent traveling from the airlock to the work site. After the task is finished, the astronaut still has to secure the tools and return to the station. A few minutes lost on one fastener can change the rest of the plan. Mission control may have to cancel another task, so the astronaut still has enough time to return safely. Astronauts also learn how to explain problems over the radio. The camera does not always show exactly what the astronaut is looking at. The astronaut has to describe the location of a fastener and the condition of a tool in short, clear sentences so the flight controller can understand the situation. After several hours, pressure from the suit becomes most noticeable in the hands. The fingers keep working against the gloves. Fingernails can press against the ends of the gloves, while the knuckles rub against the inner lining every time the astronaut grips a tool. Technicians have already tested the fit of the gloves inside a pressurized glove box. A tight spot that feels minor for a few minutes can become an injury when the same movement is repeated for hours. In front of the 𝗖𝗄𝗃 mock-up, Haig carries a patch container tethered to his body. A small diagram is attached to his wrist. He picks up one patch with the T-handle and guides it toward the sunshade. The patch is much smaller than the EVA glove holding it. Haig has to find the correct angle without allowing the tether to cross in front of the tool. Once the patch is inside, he presses the locking mechanism. The flight controller reminds him to perform a pull test to confirm that the patch is completely secure. The camera diver moves closer so the 𝗖𝗄𝗃 team can see the position of Haig's hands through the video. The footage gives the team a clear view of his body position and the tool during installation. Don Pettit repeats the same procedure. He removes a patch from the container, checks the diagram on his wrist, and inserts the patch into the mock-up. Every installation ends with a pull test before the training moves to the next step. When the same movement keeps getting stuck, the team replays the footage to see whether the problem comes from the astronaut's body position or the tool itself. The problem of keeping the body stable goes back to the Gemini spacewalk program. Several astronauts became exhausted very quickly while working outside their capsules. Their bodies moved every time their hands pushed at equipment, and there were not enough handholds to keep them in position. In 1966, Buzz Aldrin trained underwater with Gemini and Agena markups before the Gemini 12 mission. He broke each task into short movements and used handholds and foot restraints to keep his body stable. Aldrin completed 3 spacewalks during the mission with much better body control. Neutral buoyancy later became an important part of NASA's EVA training. The current NBL pool was built after the International Space Station grew beyond the capabilities of NASA's earlier training facilities. NASA named it the Sonny Carter Training Facility in honor of astronaut and physician Manly Sonny Carter. The first suited dive took place in October 1996. The facility was officially dedicated in May 1997. On January 16, 2025, Nick Hague exited the International Space Station and moved toward 𝗖𝗄𝗃. The procedure he had practiced in Houston was now being performed on the real instrument. The team had used 5 patches while developing the procedure at the NBL. During the actual spacewalk, Hague installed 9 patches across 8 damaged sunshades. By April 2025, the patches and a detector reconfiguration allowed 𝗖𝗄𝗃 to collect data during more than 70% of the daylight portion of each orbit. 𝗖𝗄𝗃 science operations were temporarily suspended again in June 2025 after a separate problem appeared in the pointing system. The patches had successfully covered the areas where unwanted light had been entering. The new issue came from a different system. Today, about 1/4 of the NBL floor has been turned into an artificial lunar surface for the Artemis program. Astronauts are weighted so their bodies press against the surface with about 1/6 of their normal weight. They walk across sand and slopes that can be tilted by as much as 20 degrees. The water slows their descent, allowing the team to study how astronauts lose their balance and get back on their feet. Lights are placed low to create long shadows similar to conditions near the moon's south pole. Rocks and depressions can disappear completely into the shadows. The control room can add a delay of around 4 seconds on the audio and video during simulated lunar operations. Astronauts have to keep making decisions while waiting for a response from Earth. The NBL is also used to develop ways of rescuing another astronaut who can no longer move without help. The position of the handles on the suit and the rescuer's body angle are tested, so the procedure can still be performed by 2 people wearing bulky spacesuits. After a session ends, the astronaut is disconnected from the mock-up. The crane slowly lifts the astronaut back toward the surface. Technicians support the suit while the helmet is removed and the pressure is lowered. The hands are among the first areas to be checked. Pressure marks on the fingers are recorded. Any part of the suit that felt too tight is discussed before the astronaut enters the debriefing room. Helmet camera footage is reviewed with the instructors and the team that designed the procedure. Movements that use too much energy are examined again. Radio instructions that cause confusion are rewritten. During the next session, the astronaut once again stands beneath the crane. The divers move into position in the water. The equipment at the bottom of the pool may still look the same, but the procedure has already changed. When the airlock opens in orbit, the astronaut enters a path that already feels familiar. The hand positions and tool sequence have become familiar through hours of training at the bottom of the pool in Houston.